Welcome back to the Porsche Esports Carrera Cup Deutschland. After trips to the Hockenheimring to Spa-Francorchamps, we land at the Temple of Speed. And here today, we're ready to find out if someone can challenge Max Benneker. It's been a rip-roaring start for the Mouse Esports driver, 100% on his record of qualifying for pole, winning both the races, and myself, Arjuna Kankipati, alongside Lewis McLeod, are ready to talk you through all of the action. Lewis, it's great to be back. 12 drivers, of course, taking to the grid and qualifying moments from getting underway.
Yeah, I mean, look, Max Benneker has been insanely dominant, just so consistent. It's been brutal, but let's be honest, the Temple of Speed is something else. You know, here at Monza, you've got wide overtaking opportunities and those big moments of slipstream.
Yeah, and I think especially in this car with its fixed setup, we're very much looking forward to seeing how it's all going to play on out. If you're joining us for the first time, as we mentioned, only 12 drivers in the field, and Lewis, over 2 sessions over the last couple of days, drivers had the opportunity to try and make their way into the field.
Yeah, no one's guaranteed to work their way through. They will have to go through the same qualifying process to work your way through. Here's a look at what they're playing for today. Closed qualifying, which is what will basically presently be about to start, where they'll all drive around, they'll all get themselves onto the lap times, and then that sets the order for race one. No points, though, for race one. That's the important bit. The points are only dished out after race two, and race one decides the starting order for that second race. Like we've said before, yeah, with that prize money they're playing for, it looks like there's only really one person contending for that 12,000 euros right now, and that is Benneker.
And what makes it even more interesting, right, is Max Benneker could go in through the first 5 rounds of the championship 100% successful, but we slightly reshuffle the points going into the final round, effectively an end-of-season tournament, and from there, that is the only time that prizes are really counted on. Let's talk about schedule, because of course we've already mentioned that we've been to the Hockenheimring last time out in the Ardennes at Spa-Francorchamps. This is the final of the, non-TBA rounds. You should stay tuned on social media. In the upcoming week, you'll be able to find out where you'll be able to try and pre-qualify for rounds 4 and 5. I mean, Lewis, at the end of the day, we can only think about what sort of wild dreams we could have for where we'd want to go.
Yeah, exactly. Obviously, you know, we've seen plenty of races over 2023 on various circuits around there. So where those two are going to end up, we'll have to wait and see. I think it's Tuesday, you might find out. But to be fair, I'm excited for it. I'm interested, but this was always the one out of the 3 circuits that we've got here. This is the kind of one that I feel might be the best race. That might be the best offering. It is the most open when it comes to racing. Who knows what we're going to get in the next 2? Maybe we'll just race around a big straight. What was that circuit? It was literally just a straight down into a hairpin and then a straight the old F1 circuit. Was it Avis or something?
Oh,
we'll go there.
That's a deep cut. I'm not entirely sure. That could also be the IndyCar tunnel that they used to have. You were very excited about this race, though. I can only imagine how excited you were for the track guy to welcome us to the Temple of Speed.
This round of the championship then takes us to Italian soil as we head to the Royal Villa of Monza Park and, of course, the Temple of Speed. Absolutely the fastest circuit we will visit all season. Circuit was officially opened back on the 3rd of September in 1922 and has obviously undergone a lot of changes since then to make it into the just under 5.8 kilometre circuit that we know and love today. Each of the 3 sectors has plenty of overtaking opportunities courtesy of just the 11 turns around here. The first of those being the chicane at the Rettifiglio, and of course then the run around to Curva Grande into the braking zone at the Roggia. Tricky overtaking opportunity, but definitely possible before we get into those 2 right-handers down at the Lesmos, and then of course out of those onto the Seraglio straight down towards Ascari. Really fast, really tricky, not so much an overtaking opportunity through the middle of that as we head down into the Parabolica, or as it's now known, the Alboreto curve. Big dive into there, you might have to set up an overtake down to the first corner.
So you're sitting on the fence when it comes to the corner name, right? You're not choosing a direction?
On the track guide, I won't choose direction. In commentary, it is the Parabolica. I'm sorry.
Gotcha. Okay, at least we're on the same page there. It's one of those tracks, though, where, Lewis, you and I, we were talking with some of these drivers in person over the last year at some of the events where they were racing this track. One thing they talked about in particular, how bumpy the braking zones can truly be.
Yes, why you actually see quite a lot of issues around to, what we're talking about there is in GT3s where they've got, plenty of ABS and stuff like that to deal with, and this is slightly different on that side. The first chicane is not too bad at the Rettifiglio, but that run down into the Roggia and the braking zone as you come up and over the crest into Ascari is really tricky.
Here's a look at the point as they run. And again, just a reminder that only the second race where the points are paid out. Max Benneker has been 100% successful, though. He's got a 13-point advantage. It's Maus 1, 2, and 3. But before you get to the first non-Maus Esport driver in Yuri Toman, Enzo Benito, Thibaut Casabon, and then Christopher Dambeats, the 7th driver in that running order. Again, though, Lewis, ultimately, you're just trying to be a part of the top 12 heading into the final round, that final end-of-season tournament.
Yeah, exactly. And so some of those drivers that may not have had a great start to the season, you can turn things around with a solid result. I think a solid result in 1 or 2 rounds will put you in that kind of position. I know we didn't have, for example, further down 11th position, we didn't have Dennis Schuniger in the previous round of the championship. So we'll have to see what he can do here. But I think they've all got a very, very tall order to beat Max Benneker, or to be perfectly honest, the Maus drivers. That's the important thing. I think Moritz Lerner might be able to beat Max Benneker. I don't think anyone that's non-Maus can.
Maybe the advantage of being in the Maus camp is you get the chance to just learn from the driver that's been so perfect so far. We mentioned that they're on track for the qualifying session right now. We'll be able to jump around and follow a handful of the drivers as they work through. I believe that is going to be, is it Thibaut Casabon in the Viper Green, or is it the Mint Green for Patrick Holtzman that works its way in towards the second chicane, now dancing through the first of the 2 Lesmos. And as we mentioned, Lewis, bumpy braking zones, less ABS help for these drivers to contend with.
You are, I believe, by the way, that was Thibaut Casabon. Here is Maximilian Benneker, though, in the speed yellow, which is kind of apt considering how quick he's been this season. Looking for another clean sweep. It'll be harder around here, though, to get that clean sweep, just because of how the circuit will race. The big threat will come down in the first corner, especially if Moritz Lerner misses his braking point like he did in the SLR1 in Munich. But we're not going to talk about that too much. Let's see what the lap time will be from Benneker as he'll go round to finish and start another one.
Yeah, they managed to preserve that moment as well, didn't they, in all of the future media clips that rolled. So as Benneker brings himself through the final corner, you see the 12 drivers on the left-hand side, so you can pick out who you're going to be following over the course of the day. Schoniger going to be first onto the board with the 158.485. The speed yellow of Benneker, though, where does he stack up on that left? We wait to have a sense for the
lap time.
Oh, okay, so track limits rearing their head early doors.
Yeah, so as far as we're aware, so when it says +0 on the timer on that first lap time, that's an invalidated lap. So that's quite a few invalidated laps straight away, I do believe.
The one driver with a proper lap out of 9 attempts so far. Yeah,
exactly. That I wouldn't worry too much about that right now. As the session rolls on, obviously we'll see those lap times coming. Somebody will go fairly high risk on that first lap. I wouldn't worry about it too much. See what Benneker does going through the Roger. Nicely over one side, nicely over the other. Maybe pushing it a little too far on the exit, but I think that's well within track limits.
Well, it's interesting that we're in this situation where now all but one driver has set an invalid lap time. I was watching a clip of Juan Pablo Montoya, who was saying back in the day of F1 qualifying, if he thought he was good enough to go on pole, the first lap, well, he would just try and get a top 10 lap. Second lap, top 5, and slowly ratchet it up. It wouldn't be until that 4th and final attempt that he would really go hammers out and really push for it. And I'm somewhat surprised, if track limits are such a consideration here, that people aren't in that same vein of thinking, because look at Benneker just throwing the car through a Ascari.
Yeah, there might be a thing where maybe Dennis Schuniger is the one that set the invalid lap time and that no one else has, and that's why. But we'll deal with that. We'll cross that bridge when we get to it. It's fine. Don't worry about it. Again, we'll see as lap times come in. But I was the same thing. I used to race in a league called the Grand Prix Virtual World Championship. It's very confusing. Big name, GPWC. And in that, it was brutal on track limits. Absolutely brutal. And I remember I would just set like 2 or 3 banker laps right at the start of the session and slowly build the speed. And I'd always improve at the end of the session. See what Benneker can do there across the line. Then as soon as it improves slightly, you believe. See what Benneker can do. No lap time being set, although Mattea does set a 48.640. I wonder if Benneker did actually exceed going through the Roger.
There were a couple of times on that lap where I thought he went past the limits for sure. So, Mattea, the first representative time. We're now down almost into the 147s. It's 148.640. That maybe is going to be where we stand. Look at the margins, though, through the rest of the drivers. I'm going to guess those are the intervals. So, 21 thousandths back to Toman, 11 thousandths then between Toman and Casabon in the R8G cars. First, the Maus machine. Patrick Holtzman in 4th.
Yeah, indeed. So it's not been the best start of the session for some. They're being 10 minutes, 26 seconds left to go. Yeah, sure, it's nearly a 2-minute lap time around here, but you've still got plenty of time. Here's the mode grey of Enzo Benito. Well, one driver who isn't a part of the Mouse Camp, who I do think can compete today. We've seen the consistent charge from drivers like Yuri Toman and what he's been able to do. I think it's a DTM Esports shootout, or some of basically the qualifiers for that, which he's doing a couple of days. He won his race, his given race in that one. Yuri Toman's pretty quick, and we know how fast he is on RaceSport, so very curious to see what he can piece together. I don't know. I think when Bennica actually gets time onto the board, I think it's going to be the fastest.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised, but as Enzo Benito gets very, very sideways through Ascari, you've got to wonder with the split that we have at the front. You mentioned it. It's going to be about the run into turn one effectively for Bennica if he is at the front to be able to hold on and to stay out of trouble. We still have, of course, 10 minutes left in this session as Bennica works out of that final corner, looks a little bit over to that right-hand side, and I'm not sure this is going to be a lap that counts because he's taking as long a distance to the stripe as possible, and indeed another lap that Bennica's invalidated.
Yeah, I saw him go through the parabolica, and you saw his line. He was basically braking in a straight line, and then came in for a slightly later apex, and that was that's the clear sign of I'm carrying the speed out onto the start-finish straight. So going through the first corner, I mean, you can see his emotion there in the bottom left. Not looking too bothered, too flustered, too frustrated at the moment. But if he doesn't get a lap time onto the board soon, that frustration will build and build and build.
So again, look at the split through the field in terms of the intervals. 21 thousandths between first and second, 11 thousandths between second and third. The first time you see a gap of more than a tenth of a second is between fifth and sixth position. So should be pretty fun at the front. And Bennica's really now going to start feeling increasing amounts of pressure. Just look how wide he runs out of Lesmo 1. Can take advantage of that AstroTurf, but you need to be careful. Don't want to kick yourself up into that gravel and lose a bunch of momentum as now you begin what is a climb up towards Ascari.
Yeah, 1, 2, and 3 in the championship, being the Mouse drivers. Holtzman's the highest of them, currently running in 4th position in that mint green. Then you've got Moritz Lerner down in 9th. Max Bennica, the only driver yet to set a valid lap time in the session. We ride on board with Yuri Toman, who could take full advantage of Mouse's poor qualifying at the moment as he rolls his way through Ascari. So committed. So committed.
I mean, you can just tell they're a lot better than us when it comes to rolling the speed through the quarter. It's going to be now, I think, as well for Max Bennica watching the time and not being too focused on what the drivers up front have done in that speed yellow number 71. This is looking a little bit more committed in terms of shortest distance towards the stripe. 1:48.640 for Bennica to try and beat. I only think it's going to get him up into 6th. Instead, no, it goes up to 5th. Bennica finds himself on row number 3.
Yeah, there we go, but instantly deposed down into that 6th place, courtesy of Dan Beats, but I believe that might be an invalid lap time from Dan Beats, who, when we were looking at the pre-qualifier coming into this, by the way, because obviously we were saying before about how the qualifiers to work their way into it and blah, 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 and this and the other, like, you know, they have a certain amount of time to set the fastest lap time, basically. There's a top 12 that come through to the event. Dan Beats was the one that I highlighted. Actually looked pretty quick for this round. And I kind of wonder if he might be able to pounce on that and grab himself some solid results.
Yeah, and you know, he's a driver that we've seen compete across the platforms. I think technically in this series is listed as a privateer, but we've seen him work with Team Redline, Fire, and a whole bunch of top teams in the past. And in the Riviera Blue, looks quite spiffy, I must say.
I like it.
It's a pretty nice shade of blue.
Is it your favourite one of all 12 of the cars we've got?
I mean, here's the problem. You have Voodoo Blue in there as well. That's Moritz Lerner. But because it's Porsche, you can always go and do paint to sample if you wanted to go and be really fancy.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to say my favourite is almost certainly not Mode Grey.
I mean,
but it's a colour. I just don't think it's particularly apt of a choice for someone as vibrant as Enzo Benito.
I was going to say he needs something like well, to be fair, I would expect him to be something like Viper Green or something, or Acid Green. Acid Green's better. That's probably my number one. I do like myself a little bit of that kind of really light poppy colour. So we'll have to wait and see. You can tell here that Dan Beats, though, not going for that lap time, so going in for a later apex here. We'll see him tear out through the final corner.
Yeah, see if he's already up in second, of course. It's been a pretty good start to this qualifying session for him. What will the Brute Esports driver do in that number 17? Didn't look as though it was necessarily improvement. Bennica's gone up to second, though. Holtzman jumps to third. Casabon up to the top, of course. We're seeing some improvement still with 5 and a bit minutes to go.
Yeah, I just want to update you a little bit on the Dan Beats thing, because I said that lap time might be invalidated. It's not invalidated. He just happens to set exactly the same time as Moritz Lerner, by the way. That's why it is +0, because that is the actual gap there for 5th place. Excellent lap time there from the Frenchman Thibaut Casabon, though. Becker going up into that 2nd spot, but these lap times, they're getting faster and faster as these tyres are coming up to temperature.
And I'm sure as well, to some degree, the fuel's being burnt off in these fixed setups as well. So at what point are we going to reach that crossover, at which point the tires have maybe gone past their useful shelf life and you're no longer getting as much of a benefit of the fuel burning off, as the balance of the car maybe slightly shifts around. Through Lesmo 1, still riding on board with Dan Beats in this number 26. A little bit of a slide. He's off into the gravel. That's the lap invalidated.
Yeah, exactly. We saw Beneke dip 2 wheels out there and had the exact same problem. This is it's the part of the section where by now everyone, or most people, have set what they would classify as that solid banker lap. Like what we were saying a bit earlier on. Now it is about pushing to the absolute limit of the racetrack. You know, leaving millimeters to the exit of the racetrack. I mean, for one thing, as much as that was an invalid lap time, it also wouldn't be too quick dipping 2 wheels into that gravel there. But either way, Dan Beats has still got 4 minutes left to go in the session, so still a couple of laps left to go.
Yes, and correct me if I'm wrong, Lewis, but once the clock strikes 0, that's the session done and dusted.
I believe so. Although, again, don't test me on that.
Yeah, don't test me either. So drivers don't get the chance to finish the lap that they're on. This, of course, not a lap that Dan Beats was going to improve on, and so takes a little bit of a longer arc to the line just to try and build some more speed on the entry into turn 1. Beneke's gone to the top, though. It took a while, 148.437, but the Mal's number 71 is inevitable.
Well, balance is restored. Again, maybe there's some more time from the likes of Casabon or Dan Beats and whatnot. He's just too quick. Again, the speed yellow is apt for a man of his quality. Remember, he's had pole position, race win, pole position, race win. He's been pretty good in the Porsche Esports Carrera Cup Deutschland this season, and doesn't look like he's getting near the brake pedal anytime soon.
No, the concern that you raised quite succinctly was, again, turn 1, lap 1 twice. He's going to have to survive that, and with a standing start, you're not guaranteed necessarily to get the best run off of the start line on that run in towards the opening corner. Underneath that Porsche Esports Carrera Cup Deutschland bannering we go on that run. First down, then up in towards the Scari. 2.5 odd minutes still left on the clock to go, with Beneke now a 1/10 of a second clear of Casabon effectively. Lohner and Holtzman still making it 3 Miles machines in the top 4. Casabon, the sole R8G driver to spoil the party, with Toman down in 7th. Beneke's looking off to the left-hand side. He's not looking very stressed right now. He's probably confident that he's got qualifying locked up here.
Yeah, exactly. And for some drivers, there is a little bit of disappointment in the session, like Yuri Toman down in 7th. We were seeing him absolutely flying earlier on in the session. Now finding himself down there. There's got to be some improvements surely coming in the final moments of the session. This lap time not going to count for Max Beneke. That's why he's staying out wide, going through the Parabolica, as we'll jump back to Thibaut Casabon in the Viper Green. And once again, with that line going out through the Parabolica, there's no way this is going to be an improving lap time. But it's about building on to the final lap time for them in the session.
Nito's up to 7th, and again, just look at those margins between the cars. We're talking effectively thousandths of a second between some of these groupings, and well, something that we will end up talking about in the race is sometimes you don't want to fight if you're going to cost each other a bit too much time, especially when the top 8 are split by. Now, never trust a commentator's math, especially when they're not feeling particularly well, but I think it's less than 1/4 of a second between the top 4 rows of the grid.
Just to let you know as well, by the way, that what we were saying earlier, that the session will end at 0-0 is absolutely correct. So once we hit the end of the session, when a checker flag comes out, that is the session over. You don't get to finish the lap time you started. So this is the last lap for these drivers. They will not get another one. Although to say around, we normally talk about how qualifying's not super important. In an event like this, where points are only paid out in the second race, that's very much the case.
Off they go down the back straightaway for one final time. Sometimes we do know what we're talking about, so Lewis went confidently and said the session would end when the clock struck 0. It will indeed end that way. Benneke's going to get a chance to improve again as he looks quite nonchalantly, we should be quite honest in saying, once again, talking to his teammates, it would seem. Smile on his face. It's going to be the 3rd consecutive pole, isn't it?
Yeah, he's lifted. He's lifted. He's not. This is not a lap. This is not a lap. He's just driving around. He's chilling. He's looking happy. And why wouldn't you be when you're this quick and this confident in a car? I've never seen this championship is the happiest I've ever seen Max Benneker in sim racing ever.
Yeah, and you know what? I'm here for it. I love seeing the smile on Max's face. Don't think he improved at the line. So 148.437 will be the benchmark that we will compare against for the races upcoming in terms of qualifying to race speed. But clock strike 0, times are locked in, and that is qualifying done and dusted. And I've got to say, Lewis, it's great to A, have graphics that work on our screen, but B, what a qualifying session we got.
Yeah, that really built its way up. That was a lot of fun. That was very exciting. Definitely the best one that we've had so far this season. Benneker with a couple of issues towards the start of the session, but just had the absolute confidence to nail the lap around here.
Well, what a lap it was. It took some time for him to get there. Maybe not the way that he wanted it to build, but it is still a 3rd consecutive pole position. And now Max is going to be wondering, after the 2 races that we've got in front of us, well, what other tracks that we've got yet to come? Lewis, you were right. Tuesday on social media, drivers will get to find out where rounds 4 and 5 of the championship will take place.
Yeah, exactly, and really exciting to see where that is. This is a look, by the way, at the pole lap from Maximilian Benneker, so we can see how he was able to move his way onto it to grab that pole position. We can see how tidy and how committed it was, considering he'd abused track limits in the first, what was it, 3 laps this session? This is going to be a big commitment.
It was, and braking zones, we've talked about how bumpy they are. Max is staying as far to the left as possible, just trying to set up this first chicane as much as possible, not clipping the curbs too much on either side, but helping to use them in rotating the car onto the power. Look at him bounce it off the limiter, trying to get every little bit from the engine. That's through Curva Grande down into the 2nd chicane, which I personally feel, Lewis, is more difficult to judge than the first one.
Absolutely. The braking point here is quite tricky as you go under the gantry, obviously where the bridge used to be. Onto the brakes, use a little bit of the left-hand side, throw it through the right, throw it really over that curve. You can kind of see popped on a little bit of opposite lock going through the final part of the rods. You are now down into the first of the Lesmos. Both of these are an absolute pain. I've raced Monza an awful lot. I've not figured out either of them at any point in my racing career. That makes sense. I'm an idiot.
Well, that's why we're up here in the commentary booth. Max has got it figured out this time around. I was just marveling at how close he was to the limit through that second part of the sequence, but second right-hander as easy as you'd like. And then to Ascari, where you climb uphill, it's slightly a blind initially, but it flattens out as you brake. Don't use the sausage curves on the inside, and Max being very careful here on the exit of Ascari, not to push too far out wide, which is another place that you can get dinged for track limits. And then into the corner that, well, what are we calling it? Curva Alboreto Parabolica, Curva Parabolica, Alboreto, whatever it is. We can come up with all sorts of bad names for it, but ultimately it's a long right-hander, flat as you'd like, and it's just trying to get onto the power as early as possible. And here you'll see Max trying to straight line effectively to the start-finish line, something that, Lewis, we have seen in ESL R1 competition for in races, and I'm hoping that we don't have to make the determinations ourselves.
48.437 that lap time was, a 10th clear of Thibaut Casbon, and I think we should from now on call it the Paralboretto. Paralboretto? Trying to
smashing
merge the
words
two
together.
Exactly. Why not? Why not?
Why not, indeed. There's a great look from up above, by the way, at the run that the drivers will have into the opening corner. Turn 1, lap 1. That's a phrase that, in some ways, Lewis, feels like it was designed for this track in particular. Yeah,
Mark Lerner starting from 3rd, so if he does miss his braking zone, he should be able to clear the entire field before going into it. So it should be okay. He's got to start directly behind Benneker. Whilst Mouse were looking really average for the most of that session, the fact that they've qualified 1st, 3rd and 4th shows really, really well for the team, and they're going to be able to control this race with being 1st, 3rd and 4th. The problem is, for drivers that are a bit further down, like Enzo Benito and Yuri Toman, they're starting from 7th and 8th in this race. If they want to make their way through, the easiest way to do it is down into turn 1. And again, points aren't dished out for this race, it's about the second race. you've got to be kind of fully committed in doing so, but you don't want to bring race control into it because that could end your entire day, basically.
No, definitely not. And of course, if you joined us yesterday here on Porsche's Twitch for the opening round of the Porsche Esports Super Cup, that was live at Daytona. And what a wild race that we had with the likes of Sebastian Job, Gustavo Ariel, Chris Lullum trying to effectively bump draft with one another and to try and take advantage. I don't think that's going to be something that we necessarily see here, but if you do get the chance to break away and break the toe, Lewis, there is no looking back.
No, absolutely not. By the way, we're in warm-up between qualifying and the race. We'll be moving into the first race very shortly. You're absolutely right. That racing yesterday at Daytona was pretty exciting. Obviously, big congrats to McEwen and to Sebastian Job. Brilliant stuff. But that's pack race. That's always what we expect from Daytona is this big pack racing kind of environment. This is it kind of similar in the sense of like there's a lot of slipstream around here, but you don't get anywhere near the amount of pack racing. You can, even in a normal circumstance, you can pull away. You can break the slipstream yourself, whereas at somewhere like Daytona, you literally cannot break the slipstream yourself. You need assistance from battling.
Yes, the assistance from drivers sometimes not using their brains as much, and recognizing that fighting's great to watch, but not always great in terms of what the clock represents. So, qualifying, of course, done and dusted. It sets the grid for the first of two races. No points to be paid out in this first race, though. Max Benecke continues that 100% qualifying streak with the pole position by almost a tenth of a second from Thibaut Casbon, Moritz Lohner, Patrick Holtzman, Lucas Mattea, who was flying in qualifying, is in fifth alongside Christopher Dambeat. Before you get down to Enzo Benito, Yuri Toman, Mikkel Schmiedel, Dennis Schoeniger, Nico Nuninghoff, and Florian Bauer, the 12 cars that are ready to do battle for two races, of course. The first of them, 9 laps to set the grid for the second 9-lap race. And I'm putting you on the spot right now, Lewis. Does anyone beat Max Benecke? I'm making it an easy question, at least.
That's a very easy question, because no.
Ooh, interesting.
Absolutely not. No one's beating Benecke today.
Even at Monza, even at the Temple of Speed?
Even at the Temple of Speed. We could be racing anywhere on planet Earth in this car at the moment. I just don't see anyone beating Benecke. He's so strong. He's so consistent. The only threat for him is this run down into the first corner. That's the scary bit. Once he gets through that, I think he'll be gone.
It is a bit easier to control than maybe we are leading to believe once that first corner has come and gone. But now the driver's just waiting for the lights to build. The Porsche Symphony roars once again, and the Temple of Speed sees action in the Porsche Esports Carrera Cup Deutschland. Car at the back goes nowhere. Benecke with a great jump, though. He will lead them down into the opening corner. Is he going to cover the inside, though? The Speed Yellow machine doesn't cover that inside line, allows the 64 to go deep under the brakes, and Thibaut Casbon's going to get swarmed as off for the first corner. The Porsche 992 GT3 Cup cars launch themselves through Curva Grande.
Well, Thibaut Casbon was brave there to hang it around the outside of Moritz Lohner, but how brave was Max Benecke? Had the trust and faith that he wasn't going to get absolutely sent, leaving that door wide open because he wanted the tighter line off of that first chicane at the Rettifilio. Down into the Roger they go. Benecke will lead from Casbon, Lohner and Holtzman. So bearing in mind that Casbon's the R8G driver, he is an R8G sandwich right now.
It is a pretty tough up toward the front, but we are starting to see a separation start to build. You see Christopher Dambeats in the Riviera Blue, behind Toman, behind Mattea, and then a full second up the road. As out of Lesmo 2, they will dance once more. You can see just how close to the grass they get, really trying to maximize as the tires still come up to temperature, get into their operating window, into Ascari. It's going to be interesting to see who's bravest of them all. Benecke's not being able to drop those behind.
No, indeed. Like I say, as soon as if Lohner can get past Casbon, or Holtzman can get past Casbon, I think things will be a bit more settled. Right now is where the big threat is, because Casbon's looking absolutely rapid right now. There is a large gap back to the Amethyst Metallic car of Mattea, so I'm not sure if that grouping behind fifth back is going to be able to rejoin this battle for the race lead, because I think these lot, let's be honest, they're not idiots. I don't think they're going to race too hard right now because they know that they can confirm themselves a top 4 position.
Like you said, ultimately, grid positioning for that second race where the points are actually paid out could be more important. But if Mattea's in that draft and able to close, it could end up being a situation where it's not about what these drivers at the front want to do. They're 3 wide, slightly further behind. I mean, goodness gracious me. Christopher Danbeat the long way around. Is he going to allow Nuninghoff and Benito to squeak their way on through? We're playing bumper cars off of the corner. Nuninghoff's almost off into the gravel. They're still squeezing each other as on the power. Where do you go if you're Mikkel Schmiedel?
You can't complain about Nuninghoff there going for that dive because you couldn't miss him there with that acid green on the car, making his way through now into 7th position, but it's not complete just yet because Danbeat is going to send one down the inside, trying to hold on to that spot. That was a big one, and Enzo Benito, Mikkel Schmiedel, they're sat behind. I mean, they're effectively teammates. You know, they're both a part of the red line camp, but here they're sat there looking at each other thinking, oh, God, after you, mate, I guess.
I mean, there's not much you can realistically do in this position, and the mode grey of Benito now going to try and follow Schmiedel through. Nuninghoff's going to get escorted off wide through the second. Lesmo will rejoin down in 10th position over with Dennis Schoniger, as well as Bauer down at the very back of the field. Not sure what happened to the two of them, but this has been the wildest race we've had so far. We're not even 2 laps in.
That might be a pen for Mikkel Schmiedel there. I think there was a bit too much of a squeeze going through Lesmo too, but we'll wait for race control's decision on that one. Back to the fight for the race lead, and you can see 5th place, Yuri Toman now has got his way past Mattea. Now, if there is a chance of anyone rejoining or joining into this group, it is someone with the speed of Yuri Toman. Did not nail qualifying, but as we've said before, if there is a circuit where I wouldn't be too worried about not nailing qualifying, it is this, especially with this format, because again, no points for this race, it just sets the grid for the next one.
And if you are Thibaut Casabon, you're now hoping that your teammate will close just so you have some assistance. He may not need any help though if he wants to go for the lead. He's content to run into the bumper of Bennica and push him down in towards turn number 1. It's what you were saying earlier, Lewis, when it comes to not wanting to compromise what would be a top 4 starting spot.
Yeah, exactly. By the way, those two behind, they've definitely caught up now with a big commitment on the brakes from Yuri Toman down into that first corner in that gold metallic. So we'll absolutely rejoin this. So it is becoming a bit of 2x2. You've got Bennica and Casabon with a little bit of bump drafting happening here. Casabon's focused clearly on himself and not on helping his teammate rejoin this fight. Moritz Lerner and Patrick Holt, the two mouse drivers, working together with Mattea and Toman in 5th and 6th. Whilst they are 2x2, I think they're all still effectively one group courtesy of the slipstream.
One long group with that slipstream is a terrifying proposition at a place like Monza as well. There's very squished Thibaut Casabon. That's unless that perspective's looking a little bit different.
No, that's what he looks like.
Is that what he really looks like?
That is a full-on look at Thibaut Casabon. That's the real him.
I mean, he's at least gone to the effort. The proper sponsor banners behind him. He's got the team jersey as well. I'm only slightly jealous that I don't have an RHG shirt because you do, right, Lewis?
I do. I've got an RHG shirt, got an RHG hoodie. I've got a little, genuinely, a little, I can't remember what the scale is. I think it might be like 1/64th scale of the RHG LMP2.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Not bad.
How do you feel about that one?
Yeah, not great. Thibaut Casabon deep into the final corner, almost runs over Bennica, but it's building. 3 laps about to be complete in this 9-lap race.
Yeah, that was, I think, more of a mistake than anything else from Casabon. I don't think he was trying to go for anything. Let's see if he goes into the bump draft mode here on the rear end of Bennica, or maybe goes for a look down. I don't know why there's a car stationary on start finish straight. We won't talk about it too much. It's fine, as we'll see if there is going to be a look. I don't think Casabon has any aspirations of going through right now. It's just literally about holding the spot.
Yeah, that was a little bit, I think, of one of those cases where he didn't mean to go that deep, and he caught Lewis and myself a little bit unawares. I can only imagine what that was like for Bennica in the rearview mirror, but they get through that safely. As you had mentioned as well, Toman and Mattea with that commitment initially had both closed, but now Yuri Toman's the only one that's really been able to close that gap. The brave number 17 trying to close, but maybe brute number 17, excuse me, trying to close, but just losing out slightly. Bennica's not looking as nonchalant as he was in qualifying, not so happy-go-lucky by any means, but he's in control of this race right now.
Maybe I do take it back. Maybe Max Bennica is not going to comfortably walk away with this one. It's going to be a guaranteed victory. But then again, he knows how to play this race strategically. I don't know if he's getting the assistance required from Lerner or Holtzman to maybe get Casabon. Then again, I think the dynamic of how this race will work and how the next race will work would be completely different. Because right now, if you're in sort of like the top 4, you're starting on that front row, or on the front couple of rows, so I'm not that stressed about working my way forwards. Whereas in the next race, obviously, you're talking points, so you will go for a bit more.
Let me throw something at you, though. If you're Max Benneker, you saw what happened on the start last time with Thibaut Casabon trying through turn number 1. Are you going to cover the inside next time around?
I don't know. That is interesting, because I would have covered the inside line the first time.
Right.
But I think the fact that he had so much confidence to leave it wide open and not worry about it too much, because he knew that the inside line going through the second part of the Retifilio, that worked out for him. He had enough speed to carry around the outside. So I kind of think maybe no, but you're playing a very dangerous card there, because if the car on the inside overcommits, they're going to send you straight off. There's nowhere else you're going to go. Whereas if you're on the inside and then they overcommit, well, they're just going straight on, so it doesn't matter to you. I would take the inside line. Absolutely.
I think you have to. Like, I was genuinely surprised that Max gave that much room. Yes, I know that he had a pretty decent start, had the launch, but still, it's a risk, especially when you've had such a successful run so far and you don't want to necessarily have no control over that. Toman now has closed, so it is 5 at the front, but now, of course, Casabon and Toman separated in terms of teammates by Lohner and Holtzman. Not, I think, going to be a fight that we see now. It's going to be at the start of the next race, where Yuri Toman is going to need to get a pretty decent start so he can back up his teammate up towards the front. And then maybe the team shenanigans, the draft games, the bump drafting, it will all start to really be important.
I think Yuri Toman's out of getting a bit more involved in this fight as well. If there's one thing that we've known about Yuri Toman over the last 12 months here on RaceSport, and it even goes back to the very first race, the very first one, which is an ESLR1, the very first final of that race, which is on the Saturday in Katowice, is that Benneker was leading, this is at Spa. Benneker was leading by like a second or so, and over the last moments of the race, Yuri Toman was reeling him in, because Yuri Toman is actually really good on tyres. He's a smooth driver, he's more of an endurance driver. I know Benneker's got his fair share of endurance racing credit for sure, but Yuri Toman's very good. He's always been good at looking after his tyres bit by bit. So I wouldn't rule him out from rejoining this fight somehow, or getting himself further up before we get into that race. And I think if he gets himself into that second or third position, he's definitely contending for this race victory a bit later on.
Looked like Dan Beats and Benito going side by side into turn 1 behind them. I can give you an update that the car that's stationary on the pit straight's actually not stationary. Instead is Schoninger. Just some technical issues, meaning that not all of his updates are being sent through to us on the broadcast. Focus side by side. It's Dan Beats in the bottom portion of your screen. Tries to now work on the back of Enzo Benito, going very defensive into the second chicane. Will be able to cover off the move without any sort of additional move being made. And don't forget that Benito, Schmiedel, Nuninghoff, and everyone else that was involved in that fight, despite all of the time that they surely would have been losing, Lewis, they're now only, a second off the back of Matea in the 17.
Yeah, exactly. They've reeled him back in. And again, it's an extra position for the next race, so we'll see what we can grab from that one. I do actually have a question for you when it comes to the lead battle. Have you noticed how Yuri Toman's staying about... I know now he's obviously within 0.3 of a second, but going through a corner, he'll drop back to being like half a second off the group ahead. Any wonders as to why? Because surely that's not a pace issue.
Are you suggesting he's going to try and do a bit of a slingshot here?
I don't know. This is things that if he is trying to do a slingshot, then I wouldn't expect him to be that far off the back now. And unless it was like protecting tyres or something, I don't understand. But he is frequently with the larger gap to them. But he's clearly got the pace, because he was 1 second off of this group and then in clean air closed up to them. So he's got the pace. It's very weird.
He ran a very interesting line as well through the final corner there. Turned in a little bit earlier, but still was able to get the run off the corner. And so as they head off to turn number 1, he will continue to close. And Holtzman's going to look to the inside of his teammate for the very first time. Not really an actual move, just closing and showing himself in the mirrors momentarily. But Yuri Toman, like you said, was a couple of car lengths behind. Start of the straight. At the end of the straight into the braking zone, he's right there.
Yeah, absolutely. This is, again, it's fascinating. It's the whole thing with this is it's just so strategical. That's what I'm liking, is that yes, it's a sprint race. Yes, we're not even talking about points here. We're talking about positions for the next race. But then it's how much do you want to risk to go through? I can see Casabon maybe on the final lap of the race giving it a look down into the Retifilio, and that's it. either he'll go for it and try and take over the race to grab pole position, or he's going to half commit and back out of it, rather than actually like going full risk to try and work his way past. It's kind of that fine balance. It's interesting.
They're also, I guess, trying to stay out of trouble with race control. Haven't really had any word from them as to whether Michael Schmiedel's going to get dinged for escorting Nuninghoff off the track at Lesmo 2, but there is live race control, so there will be instant judgment if there is anything worthy of the steward's handle being pulled. As out of Ascari they come. It will be 2 laps to go this time. Again, just watching here Toman at the back of this 5-car train at the front. He's now almost half a second off of Patrick Holtman. Kind of also wondering here, Lewis, these are cars, of course, that don't particularly have much aero performance compared to actual GT3 cars. He's just struggling with a lot of dirty air.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, again, it's bizarre. There's going to be a move this time from Kazabon in the slipstream. Again, I think it will just be on the last lap. I don't think he'll go for anything now, as once again, he pulls straight up to the rear end of it. No one switching positions behind. It's been a much calmer race than what we'd normally expect. I wonder if there's going to be the same level of calmness in that group behind the Benito, Dan Beat, Schmiedel. If there's going to be the same level of just peace and quiet as what we're seeing in this top group.
I mean, we had some fun with them at the start of the race, so we weren't 100% sure as to whether they would settle into the rhythm. Matea's been caught by Benito and Dambeat, so we'll have to keep an eye on them. Remember, grid positioning for the second race determined by this one. This is what happened through Curva Grande. They were 3 wide for a moment, and now just keep watching, because for Nuninghoff in the acid green colors, he's on the outside, and it's only going to get more interesting from here.
Yeah, it's the second Lesmo, which is where he gets absolutely boffed off the road, as we'll see. There is a look down the inside. That was Schmiedel, I believe it was, making that move. And then this is where it kind of came a cropper. Going around the outside of the second Lesmo. It was in the break zone, wasn't it? It was just a little bit of a squeeze going into it. That to me, wasn't a car width.
It's a little bit too close for comfort, and you always need to leave racing room. What did Fernando Alonso say all those years ago?
You must always leave it a space.
Exactly.
He's Italian.
And so you must always respect that at the end of the day. Race control, we'll see if they have anything to say about it, though. Getting ready, though, to see what will be the final lap of this one. Benneke's led so far from the green to this point in time. But, Lewis, you've been saying if it's going to come from Thibaut Casabon, it will come on the final lap. Yeah,
exactly. That's exactly where we're heading to now. So Max Benneke's big pressure moment as to whether he's going to win his 5th consecutive race in the Porsche Esports Carrera Cup Deutschland. This is the big stress. I think he has played his cards perfectly through Ascari and through the Parabolica, or the Palbaretto as we're going to call it now. Not quite so much, a bit further down.
Ooh, couple of side-by-side moments, in fact, as Dan Beats is alongside with Benito. Looks as well as Schmiedel alongside of Dan Beats. Benito's gone and passed Matea for 6th position. So as Dan Beats holds on to 9th, the 11 machine slides on forward, chopping and changing further down in the order. At the front of the field, top 2 have suddenly got a huge advantage.
Yeah, it is enormous now, and there is going to be a look from, Yuri Toman in the background. You can see him there trying to squeeze his way past. Gets a little bit of a push, though, onto the curb from Patrick Holtzman, but he wasn't really far enough alongside to have demanded any form of track position there. It was a little bit bold to try and make it around the outside of the Roger and wasn't able to do it.
I think you had to go for it, though, especially just to give himself a little bit of a better starting spot for that second race. Would be directly behind his teammate on this grid formation. To Ascari for the final time. Casabon still close, not really expecting him to go for anything, although he will shape for it this time around. Backs out of it, but Thibaut Casabon's been waiting. We'll have 9 more laps after this, Lewis, to best Max Benneke.
Yeah, no points for this race. It is purely for track position and the starting order of the next one. Benneke, though, the fact that he's dealt with the pressure in this race has been impressive, but the next race, I think it's going to be a very, very, very different style of pressure.
Yeah, the streak will be continuing, though, at least for now. Max Benneke has been superior across the Porsche Esports Carrera Cup Deutschland. It's put a smile on his face. It doesn't do so this time, though. He knows he's still got one more race to go. But from pole to victory once again for the Mals, number 71.
Very impressive from Benneke, and you wouldn't imagine that he's just done a 9-lap race, would you? He looks as chill as could be. He looks very calm.
And finally, there was a wry smile on his face. But again, just remember that they'll get, what, about a couple of minutes between this race finishing and being on the grid for the second race. It's fast, it's furious. That's what sim racing's so unique for, Lewis. No chance to really breathe.
Yeah, exactly. It's one race done, one race getting ready, and off you go. I've said before about the whole idea, this whole triple crown. That's a big thing in motorsports. Like in sim race, you could do that genuinely in a weekend.
Yeah, I mean, we'd like to be able to do more unique things. Here's a look, I think, by the way, at the results, official confirmation of the gaps through the field, where only a tenth or so at the front between Casabon and Bennica. Lona really dropped back at the end with Holtzman, Toman, and then Benito, the rest of the top 6. And again, remember, they will line up for race 2 as they finish. So this is not just the results for race 1, the starting grid for race number 2 as well. Hopefully for the likes of Dennis Schoeniger and Florian Bauer, they can at least get into race number 2.
Yeah, I mean, obviously there are some issues for some, fair enough, but realistically, I've got to say, Yuri Toman did really well to counter the poor qualifying, to rise his way up into the top 5. Can he do the same kind of rise again and maybe throw himself into chances of being victorious? Where did he qualify? He qualified 8th and moved up to 5th. So he does that again. He's on the podium, easy.
So we did, by the way, get confirmation of a couple of different penalties. Florian Bauer, Mikkel Schmiedel, and Dennis Schoeniger all got 5-second time penalties for exceeding the incident point limit. And so I believe that does mean that Mikkel Schmiedel drops to 9th. Of course, Schoeniger and Bauer are down the back anyway, so didn't really make a difference. That was an interesting opening race, though. And at the Temple of Speed, if that was what race 1 was like, Lewis, hopefully race 2 is just as crazy.
I think it's going to be more crazy. I think when you've got points on the line, yeah, it's not just about grid position, it's about really going for it for the old W and taking those big points. You know, he's going to be hungry, this guy.
I mean, he led from the start, did Max Bennica, and what a tidy start it was for him. Although, a bit of surprise that he didn't cover the inside into the opening corner, allowed Thibaut Casabon the chance to attack. Moritz Lohner tried to take advantage in the number 20, but the Voodoo Blue car unable to get the drive off the corner, and Casabon's Viper Green held on. You could jump on board through the field, though, and what an electric start it was to the race as the top 4 or so started to break away. It was that mid-pack, Lewis, that really started to deliver the fighting.
Yeah, exactly. All these drivers trying to work their way up the order. Plenty of looks. You know, the likes of the gold metallic car of Yuri Toman was trying to work his way up after qualifying in 8th position. A bit of a spin round in the background. I believe that one might have been Dennis Schoeniger, who was sent round in that first sector. Nico Nuninghoff. This is the battle that we were seeing replay. He was battling with Schmiedel, and eventually they would come to blows. But thankfully on this occasion, wasn't quite yet.
Not just yet, indeed. And ultimately, this was still as the drivers were getting the tires up to temperature into the working window. And so it was one of those situations where you had to be careful. Then you would go 3 wide, though, into turn number 1. Kerr thrown out the door. Nuninghoff on the outside. Benito in the middle being squeezed. And Christopher Dambeat on the outside now through Curva Grande, blocking Mikkel Schmiedel will know where to go. It looked pretty intense. Benito almost got shoved directly into the Armco. But the worst was yet to come, at least for Nuninghoff's acid green machine.
Yeah, indeed. Got a bit of a dive down the inside from Dan Beats, but this was the time that we were talking about with the car of Schmiedel in the background. Chalk White goes for the up and under, departing the Roger, and then would squeeze off coming through up towards the Lesmos. Plenty more side by side in all of this as we look back at lap 1 as to the spin we saw a little bit earlier on in the race.
And this was more 3 wide. Is this a replay of what we actually just saw, or is this a very similar sort of an incident? I think it's going to be the same one. Just watch as Benito gets that little bit of a shove. So yes, indeed, we've already seen this particular clip in the highlight sequence, but ultimately after that, it did kind of settle in just a little bit more. After Nuninghoff got pushed wide, this mid-pack battles didn't really intensify too much until they closed up to the back of Matea in that number 17 machine, of course, representing the Brute Esports squad that's been joining us in the Porsche Twitch channel channel as all of this. And whether you're watching on Porsche's Twitch, on RaceSpotTV on YouTube, do let us know where you're watching from, who you're cheering for, especially as we head into the second race of today here from Temple of Speed. And don't forget that this coming week, Lewis, on social media, drivers will be able to find out where we're going racing for rounds 4 and 5 in the championship.
And again, as we've said before, when it comes to those qualifiers to get in, no one's guaranteed. Not even Max Banniker, although it is a guarantee, let's be honest. He's not guaranteed into the next round of the championship. So if he wants to get his way in, he has to work just as hard as anyone else. Even you and I could qualify if we had the speed. We'd have to see.
I was going to say, you're making some bold predictions about what we could do here in the commentary booth. Drivers getting final moments of a warm-up right now. It's an important time, I feel like, as well, because they've gotten used to what the tires feel like when they're a little bit heated up, when they're worn. Chance for them to get back to grips with what the car is going to be like at the start of the race.
Yeah, just getting an update, by the way, from Race Control on that incident we were talking about between Nuninghoff and Schmid, which was, to be fair, it was literally like the only incident really in the race. And NFA, no further action on that from Race Control. So that's that one there is sorted. They've dealt with that, and Schmiedel is clear. So might have got away with one a little bit there. I was reading the reason as to why, being more of like a technical rather than anything of physical value from Schmiedel's point of view. They definitely did everything fair and square, and I can understand that. But yeah, I think Schmiedel might have got away with one a little bit.
Yeah, Race Control giving their decision-making, Lewis trying to understand it. I do get it. It's too early in the morning for me to try and wade into all of that, so I'm going to stay on my fence and not jump into the discussion. What I will say is, if you're watching on and you're hearing some technical issues, we are aware, we are trying to fix it, but don't worry, it is not your ears. It is the joys of live broadcasting around the world. Drivers focused up towards the lights for one final time today. Lewis, I'll ask you again, is Max Banniker going to be beat?
It is Max Banniker. Max Banniker's winning this race. He ain't being beat, but I think he has to cover off down to T1 this time. He cannot leave the door open, because if he does, he's going to get past.
Well, still sitting and waiting for the lights to build. Max Banniker knows that his 100% streak could continue here today for the defense of the Porsche Esports Carrera Cup Deutschland title. He gets a great launch off the line, as I think once again Dennis Schoninger is going to have 3 technical issues that will mean that we don't know where he's going to be. Max Banniker, is he going to cover the inside? No, he will not. Thibaut Casmon jinks his way, driver's right, although Banniker deep under the brakes will hold onto the lead. Loner alongside with a 64 RAG machine. Behind Yuri Toman trying to work past Patrick Holtzman, but it's status quo at the front as they roll into Curva Grande.
I do actually get why Banniker didn't cover that one off, because if you looked at the start, I don't think Casmon got a particularly good start at all, really. It seemed like he bogged down ever so slightly and was not able to get back going again. 0.4 of a second now the lead for Casmon, so I don't think Lerner's going to fight him too hard. But where is the side-by-side? It is in the mid-pack there with Dan Beach just getting passed by Endo Benito.
I think he almost ran into the back of Benito as well. All that's done is check them up into the first of the Lesmos. Yuri Toman's got some clean air behind him as they cycle to the second of the right-handers. So important to get off this corner well. Nuninghoff is inside of Mattea. Schmiedel's trying to watch Bowers tucked in behind them as well. But single file back onto this run up towards Ascari as the gaps start to build. Banniker's already almost 3/4 of a second clear at the front.
Yeah, this could be a big one for him. If he can break that margin, bring it to a second before they get down into the Paral Barretto, then there might be the move done. There is a look to the inside. Schmiedel working his way past Nuninghoff, but no contact between the pair of them in this race. Someone out way wide. I think that might be Christopher Danbeats.
It was the Riviera Blue for sure, but not into the ocean. Instead, he was off to the gravel there for a second, able to regather things and rejoin the track as behind them looks like going to be a move attempted from Schmiedel. A big send under the brakes. I've got to say, there's making moves and there's overcommitting sometimes. Mattea recognizes that back underneath, and now drag race to the line and into turn number 1.
You want to see my lack of belief in the commentator's curse? Banniker's won this race. Six in a row. He's done it. He's 9/10 clear. He won't make a mistake from there, as we'll see the groupings behind. So Schmiedel to the outside of that Amethyst Metallic of Mattea, who was so good in that first race. Unfortunately, not quite as strong in this one. The outside, Schmiedel's going to go. So we got past Nuninghoff going into Ascari and got past Mattea going down to the first sector, of course, into the Rettifilio.
Lewis doesn't believe in the commentator's curse. I still do, so we'll now just wait to see if Bennett drops from our timing screen as, well, side to side, door-to-door contact between Nuninghoff and Bauer in towards that second chicane. It will be the Irish Green machine that tries to go the long way around, but after Bauer was out of contention for that first race, he's at least getting some wheel-to-wheel action here in the second one. Backs out of it, slots back into line, and will try and hold on, although a bit of a sideways slip for him as he out into the gravel through Lesmo 1.
Yeah, Kazimon, by the way, was closing back in a bit there, so I spoke a bit too soon. But I wonder if part of that is also assistance from Moritz Lerner behind. Moritz Lerner can actually, using a little bit of bump drafting and stuff, can push Kazimon a little bit close to the rear end of Benneker, but I don't know, I just feel that gap might be large enough. I feel like it might build. Also remember how Benneker's been this season when it comes to those final couple of laps of the session, where he always just seems like, oh, he's quite close, he's gone. We saw that the first round of the championship, we saw it in the last round at Spa, and maybe we're going to see it here as well. The gap now is over a second.
One thing to just keep in mind, I guess, as well, is I'm pretty sure in the SLR1 competition, bump drafting is prohibited, and so it did lead to a lot more of the 2, the 3 wide situations than what we get here. And in some ways, that's maybe not a bad thing, because Benneker's 1 second clear at the end of the second lap. If there's going to be the lead gap being closed on down, it's going to need to be through some assistance. Kazamon's going to be a little bit more defensive in towards turn number 1 this time around, though. I don't think he wants to give Lohner the opportunity to dive under the brakes. Half covers the middle line. His teammate Yuri Toman still stuck behind Patrick Holtzman.
There's no way, by the way, that Lohner's going for second place. He's staying behind Kazimon. You saw the bump draft on the start-finish. He gave Kazimon about 0.2 of a second on the start-finish straight with a bump on the rear end. That is the only thing that's going to push the Frenchman into the battle with Benneker. It's the only thing, which is kind of hilarious, because it is your teammate that might be your demise in this one. But we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, and again, when it comes to the points situation, Max Benneker already had 40 points, Moritz Lohner 27, Patrick Holtzman 19, and then Yuri Toman in 4th has got 15 points. So all 3 of the Maus drivers find themselves in pretty comfortable situations. After this round of the championship, we'll be halfway through the season, quote-unquote, but we'll be more than halfway through the points-paying activities before we get to the final end-of-season tournament. And so you'd have to go and do the math, but I'm pretty sure that Benneker could decide to not show up for the next 2 rounds of the championship.
He could do.
And still be okay.
He could do. He's not going to. He's going to keep this. He's going to keep his confidence high, keep the streak going into that final. I mean, there's nothing for him to say that he wouldn't do it, right? Right. It's fine. I think he's just going to keep doing it to keep himself sharp in the car, and also because we don't know what those 3 tracks are going to be in the finale. It could be one of the next 2 tracks that we still don't know. And if you miss out on one of those, then maybe you're going into it on the back foot because you've not raced one of those circuits. So I think we'll absolutely see him out in action, as we'll see the bump draft once again continue between Moritz Lerner, Maus Esports driver, and R8G of Thibaut Kazimon to try and close down on Max Benneker.
That's a very good point, actually, right? 3 races in that final of the championship. Who knows what it's going to be? Yuri Toman up the middle in towards turn number 1. He's being given some room by Patrick Holtzman in that number 94. They'll play some argy-bargy on corner exit. Watch from behind as Enzo Benito's going to close as well in the team red line number 37. But now RHE second and 4th. Yuri Toman stomping his way up an additional position. He will have to go defensive now to try and hold on, because here comes Holtzman with a counter to try and work his way back on forward. But an important pass you'd have to feel for RHE to feel a little bit more comfortable in the race.
Yeah, now Yuri Toman, of course, he's not had the greatest season thus far, and is looking to try and turn his fortunes, though, with a bit of a bump on the rear end from Patrick Holtzman trying to get to the inside going into the first Lesmo. Toman is feeling the pressure. Have you ever, though, seen a man more serious behind the wheel of a sim rig than Yuri Toman? He sits very close to the wheel and clearly very aggressively with it as well.
Yes, and I'm pretty sure you have too, Lewis.
What?
Now, this is a very... it's not related to this in any way, but rallycross. Are you picking up what I'm putting down?
You saying that I'm quite angry?
No. Jacob Rafoss, he's like a 16-year-old wonder kid,
right,
but he will stare into the camera with... Oh, it's scary, man. It's scary. Yuri Toman looks actually quite aggravated right now, doesn't he?
Yeah, he's a lovely guy. He is really a lovely guy. But sometimes behind the wheel, I am a little scared. I'm not even joking. I'm a little terrified. There are a few drivers like that. Rafoss is probably up there with that. There are quite
Kevin Siggy too.
Siggy, yeah, but see, Siggy's not a nice guy.
Oh.
No, I'm joking.
Siggy's not a nice guy if you're sim racing equipment. I think that's the way to maybe think about it.
Poor guy. Here comes a move, though. We'll see the Enzo Benito, one of Kevin Siggy's teammates, working his way down the inside.
Yeah, is he going to be lost to the late breakers? No, he's not going to be able to, because I think Patrick Holtzman recognizes that behind Benito, Danbeat, Schmiedel, Matea, they've all stacked up once again. It's now a top 3 breakaway, and maybe that's why Toman was a little bit aggravated as we cut away from his webcam, is because in making that move to get past Patrick Holtzman, suddenly he's 2 seconds off of the back of the podium spots.
Yeah, I think the podium is not going to be fought, although I will say Lerner and Casbon have worked very, very well together, because whilst the podium's not up for grabs for anyone else, maybe the race win is up for grabs for Thibaut Casbon and Moritz Lerner. That gap gone from 9/10 down to half a second as we head literally into the halfway point of the race, because once you go past the Lesmos, that's halfway around the circuit. Means we've done 4.5 laps of race. We've got 4.5 left to go.
And at this track in particular, what we've seen so far is that if Porsche's listening to Lewis and myself, can we have this as one of our final rounds?
Oh, damn right.
Yeah, I mean, let's also make sure that we put the Hockenheim ring in there, but only if we turn off the brakes for Moritz Lerner.
Yeah, I mean, look, I don't vibe with Hockenheim ring. I'm just gonna say it. No, I don't like it.
Do you prefer the older configurations?
Oh,
of the
yeah.
Hockenheim ring? No, I mean, that is an obvious option.
Yeah. To be fair, in sim racing, it's one of the things that I've raced the least. Not Hockenheim, but the old version of Hockenheim. I've only raced it twice. Very disappointed. I want to race it more. So good.
It's not one that you can race very often. Enzo Benito saying it's not often you get a free chance to slide underneath the driver that's ran out wide through Parabolica and now struggling to get draft from the car in front. Oh, a little bit of contact between them as they enter in towards the braking zone. Watch as Patrick Holtzman slightly pinches Enzo Benito initially on the run down into the braking zone itself, but then moves over to the left-hand side. Now going to run on the right-hand side. Pushes Benito off, and well, I guess all's fair in love and war.
Yep, let's see how fair it's going to be, though, for the race lead. The Viper green car of Thibaut Casbon, 0.3 of a second off the rear end of Maximilian Benneker. It has really closed down for the race lead, and I think Casbon's going to get a shout here.
I think he's going to have to go for it as well, right? Because he sat behind for the entirety of that first race and didn't really go for it. When we get to the final, you're going to have to go for it. There's no ifs or buts about it. And so you've got to take these opportunities. Like you were saying, Benneker's going to come back for the next 2 rounds. Even though mathematically he probably wouldn't need to, every little bit of learning that you can find is going to be important. Problem for Casbon is he's still the meat in the RHG sandwich, the mouse bread. I wonder how tasty that is.
Maybe very tasty. Maybe very tasty. Another team that I've got a shirt of, by the way, just saying.
Rene, come on.
No, yeah. No. See, whoa, that's a big slide there from Danbeat. He's going through Ascari. Yeah, Rene likes me, so obviously that's why I got a shirt.
Rene saw my picture of my commentary setup a week ago and was amazed that I used my dock on my MacBook on the side of my monitor and not on the bottom. He was flabbergasted.
He was also flabbergasted that I was in a Williams Esports shirt. That's why he gave me a mouse from, but I'm not going to talk about that too much. 3 laps left to go. Here we go on board with Casbon. Does he go straight away, or is he going to wait?
Well, I mean, given how strong the draft seems to be, you've got to go for it. Although, having said that, doesn't go for it with 3 to go. If it's going to be on the final lap of this race, I would slightly think that maybe Moritz Lerner is in a great position, actually, to take advantage of all of this.
Yeah, but the thing is, the reason why I say like maybe leaving it to the last lap's probably not a good idea, because what happened on the last lap of the previous race? Yeah, Benneker got on the penultimate lap and then absolutely threw it through Ascari and then pulled out quite a bit of a lead going on to the start-finish. You can't afford to have that again, as we'll see Danbeat's drop behind Matea and Schmiedel as well. Bump drafting between Matea and Schmiedel as we work our way up into the Rossia. The switch back to get to the inside from Danbeat, but just didn't have the commitment on the brakes to throw it in there.
It's a very different sort of a race than what we've seen in the first 2 rounds of the championship in terms of the racecraft the drivers are having to display. I think you're right when it comes to, Benneker's got every chance of breaking away, but Lewis, one thing that Krimzik often said last year when it came to sim racing was delusional confidence. You need to have that recognition that, okay, I'm good enough, that the guy in front's not going to pull away. And so if you are Thibaut Casabon, there's the catch-22, right? If you go for it too early, you leave yourself vulnerable. You go for it too late, you may not get the chance. I think personally, final lap of the race is asking for a little bit too much. Even here, heading into the final corner, he's already seen himself lose out a whole bunch. Moritz Lohner, 2 wheels into the grass and to the inside.
Really poor exit there from Thibaut Casabon coming off of Ascari. He just did not nail the second part of it. Then getting down onto the final curb, just couldn't quite kick it off the corner in the right way. Now there's going to be side-by-side coming off of the Paral Barretto as we head onto the penultimate lap of the race. It's Moritz Lohner in second. It is a Mouse 1-2. Casabon, I think, just going to go back into bump draft mode.
I think he's got no choice now, and it was clearly a very poor exit from Ascari. Maus 1 and 2 with 2 laps still left to go. I think this is done and dusted. No way that Casabon can get past both cars, and I think even getting past one now is going to be difficult enough if they can link up and use the draft to their advantage. Jump on board with Dan Beats, though, because the fight behind is still going to be quite close, and I can tell you that Patrick Holtzman did get a penalty from race control, had to give up a position, and so is now back behind Enzo Benito.
Yeah, indeed. So dropping back behind his old teammate, of course, Patrick Holtzman, Mouse driver Enzo Benito, red line, 5th and 6th they're battling for. They're involved in their own fight that's comfortably ahead of this group. You can kind of see them just going there through the Rozier. This group they weren't quite as close on the penultimate time into the Rozier as they were on the previous occasion into that part of the circuit, but we're not far off the final lap of the race. This is where the big moves have to come.
This is where, as well, I think you were saying, should Casabon have waited? Case in point, he's not going to get the chance, is he? And so something to think about heading into those next couple of rounds of the championship. You'll be able to learn on Tuesday on social media where we're going racing in rounds 4 and 5 of this Porsche Esports Carrera Cup Deutschland. It's going to be fun to see the drivers' reactions, I think, as well, when the Speed Yellow 71 of Bennica finds out where he has to go to try and continue the streak. Having said that, though, one more lap still left to go, and Moritz Lohner is closing. It's not done by any means.
Yeah, no guarantee he's holding that streak going into the 6th race of the season, or out of the 6th race of the season, rather. Slightly wider going into the Parabolica there from Lerner to pull it back. He's definitely got the slipstream. It's closer than it was in the qualifying race prior to this as we head on to the final lap of proceedings.
Final lap of the race, and, well, what a way to open up the proceedings at Temple of Speed, go into that second half of the season. Moritz Lohner doesn't go for it. It was teammate on teammate, not likely to have happened behind. Enzo Benito, Patrick Holtzman seem to be going door to door and wheel to wheel through the opening corner. Behind them as well, Matthias Schmiedel and Dan Beats involved in their own little fight, and I think that was Patrick Holtzman spun around in the mint green machine.
Absolutely, Patrick Holtzman. As to what happened there, no idea. We'll catch a replay, I'm sure, after the race. We'll be keeping our eyes very close on this fight here, but a disaster for Patrick Holtzman involved that fight beneath him. It had already been contact between him earlier on in the race. It showed there might well have been more.
Well, I mean, race control's been busy. I get the sense the driver's debrief is going to be quite intriguing as well. I would love to get a sense from Patrick Holtzman what happened to him there. We will definitely get the reaction from his Mouse Esports counterpart Max Bennica as he gets ready to head towards the line. But look at the 3 at the front, still split by only half a second into Ascari for one final time. Is there going to be a mistake? Thibaut Casabon made one a couple of laps ago.
Yeah, no one's going to fight Bennica here. I just don't think Lerner's going to be close up, and he's not going to risk it that hard on his teammate. But maybe Casabon's going to feel brave to try something here on Lerner going down into the final corner. And you can see that because Lerner is feeling the pressure and he's having to defend.
He's going defensive. Can Casabon take this the long way around? It's going to take a lot of bravery. It's going to take cutting back underneath, even with the rear end stepping around on him. Drag race the line. It won't matter. Max Bennica continues the streak. 100% successful. Pole positions, race victories, and in putting a smile on the face of the Mouse Esports number 71 driver. Boy, what a run it has truly been.
That's mega. That's a very impressive run. I'm sure in the interview post-race we'll hear him as happy as he's been. He just keeps this confidence going. It's not delusional confidence, though. It's just pure confidence. Just doesn't make a mistake.
confidence backed up by results. The rest of the drivers coming to a stop at the line. We'll take a look at what happened to Patrick Holtzman in through turn number 1.
Yeah, so you got Holtzman and Benito here. So Benito's off the road, loses the rear end. Oh, Patrick Holtzman couldn't do anything there. Benito just off 2 wheels into the gravel, loses the rear end, fires it straight back onto the race circuit. Bosh.
Glad that we could take a look at that quickly before we start to talk about the race, before we get into the results and post-race interactions and reactions from the drivers themselves. And so, pivotal moment there between former teammates Enzo Benito and Patrick Holtzman. I'm sure that was just a bit of a racing situation, though. Points updated as well, let's not forget, because it's only the second race where the points are paid out. So Max Benecke adds 20 more points to the total in the number 71 machine, while Moritz Lohner makes it a Maus 1 and 2. Thibaut Casabon unable to work his way back forward at the line, but should be pretty happy in the R8G number 64 to have really put up a sterling display. Yuri Toman fought his way back from a difficult qualifying to 4th at the end with Benito and Schmiedel, the rest of the top 6. Dan beats Mattea, Nuninghoff, Holtzman, and then Bauer, the final of the machines, finishing. Dennis Schoniger, unfortunately, a DNF in the second race of the night. Well, a look top to bottom at the race results, and now we're just waiting for the chance to go down to the pit road and to talk to some of the drivers. Monza definitely delivered, Lewis, I think what we kind of expected.
Look, it's been a fantastic performance from Benecke, but we've had some great racing behind. I think it's the important bit. We have some lovely side-by-side cars. Only a couple of incidents, really. You know, there was the one between Schmiedel and Nuninghoff in the first race, but that was more of a technical thing. And we had that between Benito and Holtzman there. Other than that, it's been fairly clean, fairly respectful, and fairly enjoyable racing.
And no lap 1, turn 1 shenanigans. What do you know? I mean, it's almost like Monza didn't deliver when it came to that. I think we can go down, though, and have a chat with Max Benecke, our race winner once again in the Porsche Esports Carrera Cup Deutschland. Max, congratulations. The streak continues. We've got to ask you, though, you had a big smile on your face after qualifying. You're looking like you're loving life in this series.
Well, thank you. Quite happy with qualifying. That was really a good lap, close to the lap time I did after 1 hour of grinding in the pre-qualification. So yeah, very happy with that. But obviously, right, because Monza is just.
I think we're getting some brief technical issues with Max's mic, so hopefully he can get that resolved. I'll lead you into your second question while you quickly work away on the buttons, though. Max, when it comes to this sort of a race, we wondered in both the races you didn't cover the inside for turn number 1 at the start. You also never really felt too defensive overall. How tense were you at the front of the field, knowing that this is a draft-based race, and at any time, Thibaut Casabon, Moritz Lohner could have been up your inside?
Yeah, sorry about my mic. I think it's just Bluetooth connection. So
we got you now.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, well, you know, I know that if I would be in P2 or P3, I wouldn't try too much in the first couple of laps, because you can save your tires pretty easily behind someone. You get the slipstream, and the moment you're P1, you're quite vulnerable to just get overtaken the lap after, right? So I knew that if I defended like lap 6 or 7, then we just lose time to the pack behind, and I didn't want that to happen. Yeah, just hope that Thibaut was doing the same, and he did. So very smart to just, you know, try to drive away. And then I knew it's about the last lap, but fortunately Moritz came and got his second place. So that it's quite easy then if you have a teammate behind to you know, just finish the race without any drama or you know, overtakes that are unnecessary and just maybe cost you the race. So yeah, very happy with that. And well, it's Monza, right? So you just gotta wait and hope that everybody agrees on waiting with you.
One question before we let you go to celebrate this win. Of course, we knew the schedule for the first 3 rounds of the championship. Is there any trepidation about where we're going for the next 2 rounds? You'll only find out on Tuesday.
I have no idea. I mean, I know which other tracks there are on RaceSport at the moment, but I hope that there might be 1 or 2 more. Let's see. I have absolutely no clue. I hope it's not going to be Road Atlanta. That's my only hope, because I don't like bumps and I don't like racing on that track. But apart from that, should be fine. Since it's Porsche Carrera Cup Germany, I hope it's somewhere, you know, around Germany.
Well, Max, congratulations on continuing the streak. We'll see you in a couple of weeks' time for the next round of the championship.
Thank you. See you.
Great to catch up with Max Benneker once again. I mean, he has a smile on his face. It's great to see. And Lewis, ultimately, I think recognizing that he wasn't feeling so stressed from the drivers behind is a really important thing.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the thing with Benneker there, it clearly saying he doesn't like bumps and he's open not for it. And now it's making me go, I hope for it, Atlanta. I'm hoping for bumps. I want as bumpy as it gets. So maybe if they have already made the decision on what circuits we're going to, we'll have to change it up.
Yes, maybe we can ask all the drivers where they don't want to go racing. We can pick the most unpopular track of them all to be the final race of the season. Yeah,
why not? Why not? I mean, I'm up for that. I don't think the drivers will be, but I'm up for that. Let's get Monaco on it and let's go racing there.
I think we can catch up with Moritz Lohner, though, very quickly, the second of the Mouse Esports drivers. Moritz, thanks for joining us. Love the mustachio that you've got going on, by the way. Talk to us about this round at the Temple of Speed. It looked like quite a fun one for you, trying to stay in the draft and trying to follow.
Yeah, it was, I think, a decent race. The preparation was kind of good, but I was always lacking pace, especially against Max. Max basically was so much faster than all of us in the practice already, and I was like, a top 5 is probably gonna be a really good result here. And then again, I did my PB in qualifying, which always happened so far in the Porsche Carrera Cup, never in ESL, but here in Porsche it kind of works in qualifying, so that's good. And yeah, the racing was in the first race, obviously just be conservative, don't do anything stupid, just take the starting position of 3rd place, which is good points. For me, it's important to be in front in the race of a certain types of competitors to be like comfortable in the points, and that's what happened. So I was just sitting back in P3, and honestly, I had the same idea for the main race, and Thibaut was really quick in the middle of the race. Like, he caught up to Max, which I didn't expect at all. And I was like, okay, yeah, it's gonna be 3rd. I'll just sit back and get my points. Then he had only one mistake in his whole race, and I was able to capitalize on it. Went into P2, and then yeah, it was basically done, and good points in P2, and I'm really, really happy with it.
I think it seemed like a good day for the team overall. Patrick's incident on the final lap, maybe not the ideal way to close things off, but I've got one question, Moritz. What's the fluffy thing on your steering wheel right now? Come on, tell us the story.
It's a sloth. The story is quite easy. My girlfriend gave it to me as like a Valentine's present, as like asking, do you want to be my Valentine? And it's sitting there. It's reminding me of, like, sometimes if you want to be fast, you maybe have to take a step back, relax. And I think it helped in the qualifying. I got my PB, and so far it's working great.
Well, I think we're all going to have to channel our inner sloth. Congrats, Moritz, on the 2nd. We'll see you in a couple of weeks' time for round number 4.
Thank you very much.
Well, it's always interesting finding what people have on their sim rigs. I don't have anything as interesting as that. Clearly, Lewis, that's where we need to find some more speed. Just putting random things on our rigs.
I've got a wheel and some pedals.
It's not fancy enough. You need something else.
Goodness me. Apparently I need to get some fluffy toys and things. I don't know. That's very weird. But, you know, again, power to you. Fair enough. Obviously, he's a little quicker than us, so I think he's allowed to. I think you're allowed to do that in LAN, though. That'd be one thing. Like, if you... Oh, no, I've got to put all my fluffy toys on my sim rig at LAN. You know, who knows?
Don't forget, next round of the championship is in a couple of weeks' time, 18th of February. Same time, same place here on Porsche's Twitch on RaceSpotTV. Track to be announced on social media this coming week. Max Benneker clearly doesn't want it to be Road Atlanta. Lewis now wants it to be Road Atlanta.
Definitely.
Ultimately, we'll have to wait and find out. But now we're halfway through this season, Lewis. We're coming towards the end.
Yeah, exactly. There's not long left to go. Let's get Sebring on the platform. Why not? That's bumpy. But no, yeah, of course, we're approaching the end. 6 consecutive victories for Max Benneker. 3 consecutive pole positions. He is looking like the man to beat. Will it be so simple, though, for the next couple of rounds? And, of course, going into the all-important finale?
Well, you have to join us to find out. It's been a pleasure to have you along. Working graphics, great fighting, and a great qualifying session as well for the team behind the scenes. Juliana Cesar, Eduardo Oliveira, Mike Gao, Dane Baird, our team at Race Control, and of course, the big boss, Hugo Luis, joined alongside by Lewis McLeod and myself, Arjuna Kankipati. Thanks for joining us here at the Temple of Speed. We'll see you in a couple of weeks' time at a track to be announced in the Porsche Esports Carrera Cup Deutschland.